evening, universe. Tonight I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in November. Book number 1 is Women in Science, 50 Fearless Pioneers Who Changed the World. This is by Rachel Ignotofsky, and it's a nonfiction book, and it's basically exactly what it sounds like. It's just like a profile of 50 women. So it's like one page, and it's got an illustration on one side, and then on the other side it has like a description of everything that this woman did for science. I thought this was great. Nonfiction isn't really my genre, so I wasn't super engaged, but I thought it was fun and readable. The illustrations were nice, and I think this is a good resource for any young person who is like interested in science. I think this is good information for them to have. Next, I read The House with Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson, and I really loved this book. This is about a young girl who is raised by her grandma, but her grandma is Baba Yaga. So if you're not familiar with the Baba Yaga tale, she's basically this old woman who has a house with chicken legs. I don't know what the actual story of her is, but I believe she's usually considered to be an evil figure. Hi, I just wanted to interrupt here real quick and say that I did some quick research on Baba Yaga, and it turns out she is a figure in Slavic folklore, and basically she usually kidnaps people, often children, and then cooks and eats them. So that's her deal. And she's known to sometimes accompany death on his adventures, and she also guards the waters of life. I'm not 100% sure what the waters of life are. I tried to do more research on that, and it just redirected to alcohol. So not totally sure on that, but that's Baba Yaga. She's also an ogre. I don't know if I said that before. So she's an ogre that kidnaps and eats children, sometimes other people, sometimes accompanies death, flies around in a cauldron or a like a mortar, and she drives it with a pestle, or sometimes she goes in a large kettle, something like that. And sometimes she is accompanied by 2 or 3 sisters who are also named Baba Yaga. So that's the general figure. So this was a really fun take on her. It's really fresh. She's definitely not evil in the book. She has a beautiful relationship with her granddaughter, and this book was really emotional and sweet and fantastical. Like I was saying, it's about Baba Yaga as a grandmother, and our main character, Marinka, who hates her life. And what her life is basically she works with Baba Yaga to guide the dead towards their afterlives. And they move constantly. And so Marinka can never really make any friends. They stay in one place for like a couple of days at a time, and then they move. So Marinka is very lonely. She wants a normal life, and this book is about her attempts to get it and the consequences of those attempts. Like I said, I really loved this. So sweet and emotional. There was a lot of really great stuff in here. This was a middle grade fantasy, in case I didn't say that at the beginning, and definitely highly recommended for anyone of any age. I think it's a great book. Next I read It's My Party and I Don't Want to Go by Amanda Panitch. This is about a young girl who is about to have her bat mitzvah, and at her sister's bat mitzvah, she is supposed to blow out some candles in front of everyone, and she instead has a panic attack and is unable to blow out the candles. Hello again. I just wanted to correct what I said here. I said that Ellie is supposed to be blowing out candles, but actually she's supposed to be lighting one for her sister. From that moment on, she's dreading her own bat mitzvah, and basically she decides that she's going to have to sabotage it to prevent having to be in front of people. So this book is a middle grade comedy, and it basically follows our main character, Ellie, as she does everything in her power to prevent this bat mitzvah from happening. So she does many different types of sabotage and ends up in all sorts of silly, wacky kind of scenarios trying to keep this from happening. I really liked this book. I think it was a great representation of panic and social anxiety. I think our main character was really likable and also relatable and very human. Her best friend is also fantastic, so that was really cool to see. Overall, I think this is a great, funny, quick book that will work well if you're unfamiliar with the ideas of like anxiety. It's a very good like beginner book about like this is what it's like to suffer from really severe anxiety. Great for starting conversations about it, and overall a fun time. Next up was Nightbooks by J.A. White. This is kind of a retelling, reimagining. It takes the format of 1001 Nights in that our main character gets trapped in a deadly situation, and in order to stay alive, he tells a story every night. And in this case, the deadly situation is that he has been kidnapped by a witch. And in order for her to not kill him or do all sorts of witchly things to him, he has to tell her a story every night. Specifically a scary story. And this works out well for our main character because he has a ton of scary stories that he has written, and he had them on him when he was kidnapped. So we follow the main story of our main character as he tries to navigate this witch situation, at the same time that we get a bunch of short stories that are written by him that are little spooky tales. I thought this was really fun. I liked the dynamic between the characters. I enjoyed our main character. I thought the short stories were really fun and spooky, but like middle grade spooky, because this is another middle grade. So they're not like super terrifying or anything like that, but they're still like, they're spooky. Alex was a great main character, and I really enjoyed his central struggle over the course of the book, which specifically is he kind of struggles with this idea of, is he a freak for loving scary stories so much? Because Alex loves horror movies, scary stories, anything scary, he loves it. And he kind of has this struggle of like, why am I so strange? Why do I love this stuff? And I really liked seeing him grapple with that through the course of the book. There's lots of good tension in here, and overall I liked this one. Next was Not Starring Zadie Louise by Joy McCullough. So this was another comedy, and it's basically about Zadie, who is dealing with the fact that she can't go to science camp this year, and also her grandma might be moving away very far. And so Zadie is trying to deal with both of those things. And then she also has to be in theater because her mom runs a children's theater, and to watch her, like for her to be supervised, Zadie has to be there. This is another middle grade comedy. I didn't love it, but I didn't dislike it. I was very neutral about this. Zadie basically gets up into a bunch of hijinks, basically keeps trying to help, and every time she tries to help, something goes awry. That was really difficult to read because it's like, I know what's going to happen. The dramatic irony was intense and severe in this book, but I appreciated Zadie's attempts to be helpful. There were definitely some things that I really enjoyed about this book. For the most part, I don't really have too much to say. I was pretty neutral on it. I thought it was fine. Next, I read Yummy, A History of Desserts by Victoria Grace Elliot. This is another nonfiction, and it's about the history of desserts, as you can probably tell from the title. So basically, it would take one dessert, explain it, and then give you a recipe at the end. Explain the history and then give you a recipe. I thought this was really cute. It's framed as if we are being told a story by three fairies. So it has a fantastical element, even though it's nonfiction. And that made it really fun. It's kind of like graphic novel-esque. So it's got like a ton of illustrations. And yeah, this was really fun. I thought it was really entertaining. I learned a lot of interesting things about desserts, the histories of them. It also has a really honest look at certain things. So it talks about colonialism and how that affected desserts and the ingredients that people use for desserts and stuff like that. So I thought that was also great. Yeah, this was fantastic and I really enjoyed it. Next, I read Joyful Noise by Paul Fleischman. And this one was a really fun time because I read it with my wife. Joyful Noise, Poems for Two Voices is the full title. The idea is you're supposed to have two people reading the poems out loud. So this was really fun to read with my partner. She would read the left-hand side and I would read the right-hand side, and it would make a really cool beat and pattern. It really made the poems come alive. The poems are all about insects and noticing really tiny details about the insects and the noises that the insects make. So I thought this was really fun and just kind of a delightful little time. Finally, the last book that I read in November was A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. This was probably my most anticipated release for the year. I was so excited to get to the ending, especially after the way that book 2 finished. If you don't know what the series is about, it's about I think she's 17, a 17-year-old girl whose heart has been broken by the fact that her lover, her boyfriend, has broken up with her and is instead marrying her sister. She goes to the Prince of Hearts to say a prayer to try and stop this wedding, and he actually shows up and they make a deal. And from there, all sorts of things happen. But that's the beginning of book 1, so I don't want to get into it too much. But the story is very fairy tale-esque, and I love our main character. It's very fast-paced, very focused on the romance. I would consider this a romantasy because that's like the main point of the story. There's also lots of fantastic elements, and I think the world is very vibrant. It's really fun to be in it. So I was really looking forward to book 3. The entire time I was reading book 3, I was enjoying myself. When I finished with it, though, I was not super satisfied. There were a lot of things that didn't feel wrapped up. And I read all 4 endings. I know that this book comes with a whole bunch of extra bonus material endings in different editions. I've read all 4 of the endings, so I've gotten all of those. I think that they should have been included in the standard book. I think they include interesting, helpful information for ending the story. So I really think they should have just been part of the actual story. But even with those endings, there's still a lot of things that I have questions about. It wasn't bad, and like I said, I enjoyed myself the whole time I was reading it, but I don't think that it felt fully like an ending. There were definitely ending-esque moments to it, but I don't know, it just felt like it was missing something. And I went into it with a lot of hope and a lot of excitement, even though I had seen some not great thoughts and opinions on it. I really enjoy Carrie Can Read, and so I saw her thoughts and opinions on it, and I know that she is not very pleased with how this series ended. But I thought I would really enjoy it anyway, and I kind of did, but also it kind of felt hollow. It just didn't feel like it was this is the end, and it feels like an ending. So I was marginally disappointed with it, but part of that I think is just that my expectations were so high. I definitely think The Ballad of Never After is the strongest book in the trilogy. That one was super fun. The ending was fantastic. I loved it. And A Curse for True Love was just all right. So that was everything that I read in November. I hope you've had a good reading month in November too, and are having a good one in December, because this is coming out almost at the end of December. And I will see you soon for my December wrap-up as well. Happy holidays if you celebrate any of them, and have a great night, universe.